All right, we are back, and we're still modeling out the rear part of the fuselage of our Viper. Now, in this case, I'm going to start moving my way down, but before I do, I wanted to kind of tweak out the way the surface is looking. There are some dents in it, some pretty unsightly areas, some things the vertices are doing which they shouldn't be doing. And I wanted to give you a couple of tips on ways that you can track down problem areas, which may help you out in the future. Now, this is going to be a game model, so obviously we don't want to burden it down with way too many vertices, but there is a way that you can use too many vertices to kind of help you see where you have some problems. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I jump out of edit mode and then come back over to our modifier panel, and let's add on a subdivision surface modifier, and then we can take our view subdivisions and crank those up just a couple of times. It doesn't have to be very far. In fact, 2 would probably be more than adequate, but I'm going to go ahead and set it to 3 anyway, just because I know my computer can handle it. Then I'm going to come over here to materials. We're going to drop on a new material. And actually, we could just use this, but if we want to increase the specular intensity, that's really what we're going for, because what we're doing is we're going to use that specularity to see where we have dents in the surface, and you can see we have some all along the sides, and some mild creasing as well, things that we'd probably want to iron out. Now, you don't necessarily have to get things to absolute perfection at this point, but it will help if you can tweak some of this out, and really, sometimes it can just be a little tricky, I understand, to see when you have problems with the vertices. But as you could see, as you rotate around, you can kind of see that dent. It looks like somebody punched that and kind of knocked it in, so that's obviously not good. So if we now come out here, we can see the problem, and we can tweak it out. And it's really just a way of using that subdivision surface modifier as a way to help you see where these problem areas are, so you can work with them. Then you can always just hit tab, rotate back around. I have another one somewhere down here. Looks like probably this vertex. And if you rotate, yeah, you can see how that could be rounded out a little more cleanly. And it'll be a little bit of a trade-off with the next vertex. It's just kind of a tweaking trick that can save you a lot of time and effort. However, for now, I'm going to go ahead and leave that like it is. It does look pretty good smoothed out, I will give it that. But we're going to go ahead and turn that modifier back off. And actually, I'm going to turn my specular intensity back down just a little bit. If you feel like changing the color of your material to whatever, by all means do that. Sometimes I do it from time to time just to keep things, I don't know, visually interesting in the viewport. It gives me something else to look at. So let's go ahead and take our little smooth modifier and we'll switch that off. And let's continue. Now, if I go take a look at all of my pictures, which I have just off the camera, this is kind of the area we're going to be building next. Now, on the TV model, this just kind of plugs in to the front part of the fuselage. The two are just kind of slapped together. We could build that way, or we could actually start merging that with the front. The problem with merging it to the front is some of the interesting things that go on with the wings, but we'll get there in due time. So what I'm going to do is jump over to the left view with Control 3. And let's go back into edit mode. I'm going to hit Control Tab E for edges. And let's see, if I Alt click this one edge, that gives me exactly what I want, which is always nice. Now, let's do an extrusion. I'm just going to hit E, and I'm going to pull this down to about here. Now, it's a lot further than I really need it to be, but it's just a place to start. So let's hit Control Tab V for vertices. And we can start kind of positioning these guys, because we have, it's not quite a crease right here, but it is, it's a marked change in direction. And even in our other little reference shot, which this could be a clay model or something for all we know, we can see that. We go from kind of a vertical surface to something a lot more horizontal. So let's make good use of it. What we are doing also, though, is we're ignoring that wing. So if you're working along and looking at similar pictures, now's a good time to not worry at all about what the wing is doing. Now, I'm also going to switch over and see what this looks like from the side view. I'm sorry, thank you, the rear view. So let's click out here in space. I'll hit B, kind of drag these guys in just a little bit. And we can see where, well, you can see a few things where we've got some problem areas that even up here in the upper fuselage, where we could pull these out just a little more to fill in some more of that volume, which may, in the end, require us to, well, maybe round some of this out, maybe not. If I take a look from the top, this is not bad. Maybe we'll just leave it just like that. This feels a little sharper than it needs to, though, doesn't it? I mean, not to bounce around too much, but sometimes it's just how I work. Now we could pull this back in, pull this back in. Yeah, we're just going to have to kind of interpolate that a little bit. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, a lot nicer. Okay, continuing on. Now if we jump back here to the back, we've got some interesting things going on here with the detail. Let me switch back over to a wireframe. And this is the vertex that should be somewhere right about here. Now, I'm trying to ignore the thickness of the lip around this little hole. We'll deal with that separately. So all I'm going to really do is take these vertices and place them one by one along this edge as best I can in this view, understanding that I'll probably be at least a little bit off because I'm trying to make everything work in the front view. Or in the rear view. Let's see what it looks like from back here. This is actually not too bad. Considering most of what we see all in this area is all the front part of the fuselage, as the entire ship really does a lot of tapering as you move forward. So this is a good enough place to kind of begin. What I'm going to do next, however, is switch back over to edges. Let's grab you, alt-click, move over. And let's jump over to either the front or rear view. It doesn't make that much of a difference to me right now. And we'll hit extrude, and I'm just going to pull these together like so that they become joined together. Now, let's start playing with some vertices. Now, what I don't want to do is get caught up in the idea of quickly thinking I should grab like this vertex and pull it up here. We can't do that because if we take a look from the side view, this area extrudes back outward, so we have to watch out for that. Now, let's see, I want to check out a couple of things real quick. If I wiggle this vertex down and then take a look from the back view, it's not too horrible, but it seems like this should probably be up here with the way things are going. And what makes me say that is we've got this black line that's actually in the texturing through here. It's another piece of paneling. And if we look at the side view, this is that very line. So if the vertex is lined up with that line in this view, then it should be lined up with that line in this view as well, meaning we need to slide it backwards. So maybe I will go ahead and just put this right here for now. And I can always add a few more vertices as we go in order to kind of smooth things out a little bit, because I mean we did make a huge extrusion here, and it would be nice if we had some more detail to kind of help clean that up. I'm not quite convinced that that's really the route I want to take, but that's where we're going to start anyway. Let me right click. I'm going to undo that actually. To Control R, I'm going to roll my mouse wheel up once and then click. And that's going to add 2 edges instead of the normal one. And I can start using these edges. Just thinking. I don't necessarily want to follow this in this specific manner. Excuse me, sorry. I think what I'm going to do for now. I'm sorry, I understand it may be frustrating to try to follow along when there's a little bit of back and forth going, but all I can do is apologize, because this is really how I model. I'll come up with a solution, try it, and go like, nah, let's go over here. So that's what I'm doing. We'll say nah. I'm going to come over here, grab this guy, and we're going to pull this guy over to right about here. I'm going to put this guy right about, Ooh, depends on how much rounding we want. If we want a lot of rounding, we want to put it pretty high. What I'm going to do is leave this with very little rounding for now, and then I can just add more momentarily. We'll pull this back down. And then let's switch over to edges. And we'll do an extrusion. And I'll just pull this way out for now. And Control Tab V for vertices. And do something kind of like this. Okay. Now we need to kind of clean this up a little bit, so let's pull these vertices down. I'm just kind of straightening out that edge. Now, if we take a look from the rear view, we're pretty close to where we want to be, all things considered. This edge can come in, or this vertex can come in quite a ways, actually. So it's somewhere right about there. This can sort of come down a little bit. And then we can hit Control Tab E, grab this edge, and extrude it up. Switch over to vertices with Control Tab V, grab this vert. I'm going to hit the point key on my numpad. And this vertex, Alt M, merge at last, and there we go. Okay, so looking pretty good so far, I think. Let's check it out from the side view. And we'll pull this out, pull this out. All right. Now, we do need a little bit more cleanup and rounding. So what I'm going to do is hit Control R here, and that'll add a loop around there that I can just pull this down. The rest of these actually line up pretty well, but you know, we can do a little bit of vertex adjustment for general cleanup. And take a look from the rear view. Looks like we've got a little bit of indentation taking place here that we can clean up. And we're obviously going to need some more detail in this direction as well. Let's try playing with that a little bit, see what we get. Let's just drop in one edge. I'll move it over here. And then let's put it right inside this little crevice area. I don't yet know if this is going to be a really good idea, but it's one of those things I just want to try and see how it turns out. If you guys will pardon me for just a moment, I'm going to take off the pair of headphones that I'm wearing because they're squeezing my jaw at just this right point. That's just causing excruciating amounts of pain. I mean, it might make me a better modeler to model while I'm in excruciating pain. That's entirely possible. But I'm not going to give it a try right now. Alright, now as we get up here, this... Oh, strike that. This should become a little easier. We can just kind of get these vertices aligned in this kind of dip-like area. And they kind of spread out once we get back here. Okay, looking good so far. Alright. Now, if I grab another edge and I put it right in here, then I can, well, let's see, if I switch over to edges, I'm just going to grab every other edge for a shortcut. And we can pull those down, and let's take a look back here from behind once again. That actually got pretty close for just kind of starting out. Yeah, let's just kind of make that work visually. So we can switch over to vertices. And I'm just going to try to flatten out these verts right in here. Let me go ahead and hit my point key to kind of zoom up on those. I don't want to spend a terrible amount of time tweaking right this moment, so I'm going to kind of slap my hand and make myself come over here and work on some other things. So let's hit Control R, and I'll add another edge, this time a little bit further to the outside. I'm going to deselect that point up there at the very top, and we'll just pull that down. I'll switch back over to a rear view, and if we come out here, we can see how we can just sort of use that to accommodate the overall shape. I can pull this in a little bit. And we've got an interesting change in direction that we can clean up back here. Say it's right about there. And like so. Okay. Now that still looks pretty organic. For the moment, I'm not too stressed about that, though. It is kind of a flowing sort of organic shape. But I do need to look at this from beneath, actually, and see how things line up from here. Now, this is a little bit on the confusing side. So what I'm going to do to make it easier on myself is switch over to faces. So Control, Tab F, let's go into the side view. I'm going to hit B to drag out a marquee selection box, and I'm going to grab all of these upper faces, including this guy here. And let's go under View, under Mesh, excuse me. And we'll go to Hide Selected. And I'll just put those away for us. Now, if we switch to the underneath view, once again, then this should become a whole lot easier for us to read. Now you can see how we need to sort of taper this whole shape in just a bit. So we're missing some of what we need here. So what I'm going to do is grab, let's just start with these faces here. I'll try to keep this simple so I don't have a whole bunch of individual vertex cleanup, but that's also par for the course. You got to understand you're probably going to end up spending a good chunk of your time just pushing and pulling individual verts. And I'm going to switch over to edges. We'll grab these two edges and I'll pull them in. And these two edges, and I'll pull them in as well. Pull that one in. Now let's switch over to vertices, and I can just kind of start cleaning up what's really going on here. Now I'm leaving a little bit of room here because some of what this piece of the fuselage is doing is actually obscured by the geometry of the wings. So I'm sort of interpolating that on the fly. Now I probably pinched those together pretty harshly, and I did. So let's grab all of these verts. And we'll just slide these in from way up here. And we can pull this in, pull this in. Pull this in, like so. Okay. Now I'm just going to switch over to aesthetic cleanup, where I'm not going to stress too much about what the image planes are doing. It's an organic shape anyway, so you've got a little bit of liberty, but you do want it to look nice. So we'll just rotate around from several different angles and create a shape which meets the criteria we need and is clean looking. Probably don't need these edges to slant backwards the way they do. So we'll straighten those up. Now, I'm detecting a little bit of a lip here, and I think we should have one. But before I create it, I need to go ahead and unhide everything else. Let's go back to Mesh, Show Hidden, and that brings back the rest of our surface. Now there is some cleanup we need to do here as well, so let's jump back over to the side view. And all of that scooting around resulted in some of this, which is fine. No worries, pretty easy to clean up. Pull this forward, and let me just go ahead and click out here. I'll grab these verts down here and slide them all forward as one. I just like seeing things line up as cleanly as I can, as long as I remember to check every single view. And I'll admit, sometimes I forget to check from certain views, and I come across something later, and I'm just like, oh, how did I let that slide? What's wrong with me, you know? Let's see. Move these up a little bit. This whole area could use some cleaning up. Could take these verts and slide them up so that's not quite as pronounced right there. How does that look from underneath anyway? Ah, yes, that's what I thought. See, it's just remembering to check all the different angles. That's really the big thing. If you can do that, you're golden. If you forget to do that, well, you got a lot more work to do. So we'll slide these back here. Let's grab these guys and pull them over here. Oh, come on, work with me. Fine, we'll just move you like that. I also need to go into my user preferences at some point and turn on commit on release so that I don't have to click the mouse again when I do moves like this. That's a personal thing. And if you like having to do that second click, then, you know, by all means, more power to you. And I keep wanting to click inside the white circle to move the vertices around, but you just don't do that in Blender. Which is not how it works. Alright. I don't need that. Let's go back up underneath, and we'll pull this. And actually what I can do here, and this should work out well, I think. So I pull this in, and pull this in, pull this guy back out. I can then pull this vertex out, and this vertex out. And I should be getting something really close to what we need here. Let's check it out from the rear view. Yeah, it's closing in. Can pull that up. Now we are missing some of the detail we need to get this as perfectly round, obviously, as the TV model. But that's okay. That's not a problem at all. Now what's this? What am I seeing here? Huge change in direction on edges, and we all know that that bothers the daylight out of me, so let's pull that in. Yeah, I think that's looking a lot nicer. Now there's little discrepancies, like if I aim down the length here, you see how we get this kind of zigzaggy line? I really don't like that. So we can pull these very gently. Just pick a direction. In this case, I like using the Z direction as much as possible. Maybe tug this out a little bit in X, just so that from just about any angle you'd look at it, you get a nice, smooth, flowing, contiguous line. That looks a lot better. And if we come over here, looks like maybe this vertex could be pulled down and out just a little bit. Just kind of wiggling it. It's one of those things you'll feel more than you'll see. Okay, now let's jump over to the side view again, and I think I can get away with adding in another edge here. Most of what this edge is doing is going to be obscured by the wing. So what I want to do is just use it to get some rounding here. Maybe pull this over just a little bit and tug this up slightly. So it's just kind of helping complete this here. But I don't necessarily want to use it all the way across. It's just adding a whole lot more detail than I really need. So we'll grab these two vertices and I'll Alt-M, merge them at last, Alt-M at last. Since we're making a game model, we don't care if we make the occasional triangle. There we go. Just a way to anchor out a nice extra vertex there for some additional rounding, which we could probably do without. I just like it in terms of maintaining the shape. Okay, now some other problems that we have when viewed from the front. We're caving in a lot of the structure here, which I think we did a good job for the most part around here. It looks like we could stand to beef this back out a little bit, but this is really dented in here on the side, so we need to clean this up. Quite a lot, actually. So that's what I'm going to focus on next. Pull that out. And pull this out. And rinse and repeat until we get these at least pulled as outward as they need to be. And then I'll worry about positioning them vertically so we have a nice, once again, smooth, flowing edge. I may take this guy and pull him out just a little bit further. Okay, now that fixes that, so I think the next thing I would do would just be to turn this into a straight or straighter transition. So instead of these denting in quite so far, we'll just have the surface sort of go straight down to the tapered version. Okay. That looks a lot nicer. Alright, so now the only other thing I really want to do here is create a bit of a lip. At least, well, we've already got something here on the back. We had a little bit of a lip here that makes sense. We could use some thickness in through here. I'm going to worry about that when we get to the engines. For now, I'm not going to stress about it at all. But I am going to put a little bit of something around here. So let's switch over to edges and click. And I'm just going to extrude. And it's a nasty extrusion. Actually, you know what? I don't want to do that much extruding at once. It's too much of a pain to get it to look right. So do this a section at a time. Pull that down just a little bit. Grab these three, hit E, pull them in just a little bit. Pull these in a little like so, and then these last few can just go up. Which of course is great. That managed to meet at the seam, which is exactly what we want, of course. Now let's just clean up our vertices. So Control-Tab-B for verts. Grab these two, Alt-M, and we'll just meet these at the center. Fantastic. And you. Alt-M at center. And you. And let's see. Boom. Alt-M at center. Perfect. So a little bit of tweaking aside, I think that's a good way to get the underside of our fuselage area pretty much wrapped for now. And I mean, I do want to mention there will be tweaking as we move forward. There is one last thing I want to do to save us a little bit of time. Let's handle, if we take a look from the side view, this kind of internal piece of cowling right here. And I'm totally going to cheat to create this. What we're going to do is switch over to faces. So grab you and you and you, and hit Control, and I'm hitting Control plus to expand that out to about here. Now let's hit Shift D, and I don't want to move that, so I'm going to right click to cancel the motion. We're going to pull this out like so. Oh, don't want to do that either. Now, let's grab all this again. So hold down Control, hit plus until you have the whole thing selected. And I'm going to pull this in just a little bit, like so, and that's going to shrink it sideways. So sliding it in the x-axis will actually make it a bit smaller, which is kind of what we're going for. Then let's grab, let's do a couple of things actually. Let's get the whole thing again, so more Control pluses. The thing should be nice and lined up at least from the side view, or that's what we need to do next. So let's just from the side view, we'll put it right about here. Then let's just go in and make some adjustments and put it where we need it to be. So let's start off from the top. And we can see how it's a little bit too wide. So if we hit B, oh, excuse me, and middle mouse drag out these faces to deselect those. Actually, let me also middle drag out these as well. We can pull these in. That's pretty close to where we want to be there. The only other thing we'd want to do is switch over to vertices, deselect. Let's grab just these guys, and we'll slide them back, maybe slide them out a ways. Pull back like so. Oh, wrong guy. Come here, you. There we are. Alright, and really it's just a matter of scooting a few verts. So that's looking pretty good. Let's see how it's looking when it's kind of protruding through the surface like that. Actually, it doesn't look half bad. We do want to check it from the front view. Yeah, I was a little afraid of that. So to solve this, it looks like we need to come upward. Let me do something real quick. It'll just make my life easier. Let's hit Control Tab F, grab any one of these faces on this surface, and hit Control plus until we have the whole thing selected. Then we're going to come down here to Mesh, Show Hide, and Hide Unselected. That just gives us this to work with, which will be pretty handy overall. So now let's go back over to the front view, and now this should be a whole lot easier to manage. Hit Z, Control Tab V for vertex, and we'll just move this out, move this out, maybe grab just these guys and pull them a little bit further. Can always do a little bit of cleanup after. B, grab these and pull them. Whoop! Whoa there. Oh, looks like we have kind of a nasty guy back there in the back, but I'll deal with that. Pull that up. Now let's just do some cleanup. So that obviously would need to come out a little ways. So we maintain some nice rounding. And that looks a lot better. So we have that lined up right about there. And we can pull this out just a little bit. Okay, now let's go back over to Mesh, Show Hide, Show Hidden, and there we go. Now something else that we can do that arguably could help us out a little bit would be to probably get rid of these faces back here. We probably don't need them, so Let's go ahead and do that. So if I just deselected. Oh, I'm sorry, I undid a few times, and that put a lot of those vertices back away for me. So let's hit B, and I'll grab these and hit X. And I want to delete out the faces. Then we're going to switch over to vertices, hit B again, grab these, switch over to the side view, and then just slide these back so that things line up from there. Let's take a look at the top view, and things still look good. So that's probably all we need right there. So now, let's get out of here, go back to Mesh, Show Hide, Show Hidden, Z, Tab, and there we are. So I think this is a good place to stop the video for now. I will real quickly make sure I select the object and click the Smooth Shading button so that we see how that looks. And that is going to wrap things up for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next episode. See ya.